Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Jennifer Tolo. Jennifer is a transformational coach and is trained as a whole health educator. She's a patient advocate, personal trainer, Reiki master, mindfulness coach who teaches, speaks, and provides courses to help high achievers self-regulate, find balance and connection to self and inner strength and resilience in their life. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You have a lot of certifications. I just have to get that out there.
I know. Well, when you have the belief system that you're not enough, you keep trying to prove that you're enough by getting more and more and more. Yeah,
I totally can relate to that.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you you are enough, even without all those certifications. So tell us.
Circumstances made me that way, I will tell you. They taught me more than any training I've ever had.
Isn't it amazing how that works?
Yeah.
So do tell us your story, how you got to where you're at.
Sure. So I started out my adult life as a critical care nurse, and I always wanted to help people, was always a nurturer. I always had that intuition and that I picked up on energy, and I was a medical intuitive. I could kind of see, but I didn't know that I was at the time, because that was never, I was always told, stop, you're trying to get attention when I was a kid. So I went to the left brain. I went to logic. I went to, kind of proving myself that way. So I was a critical care nurse. I thought I was thriving in chaos. I loved the pace of it, the troubleshooting and the excitement, if you will. And I had met and married my husband. My husband's a surgeon, had our first son. And he was the golden child, if you will. Everything was great. I was very type A, had these expectations of like how life should be and how my life was going to be and how my children were going to be and what kind of parent I was going to be and what the right thing to do was. I lived life in a very black and white world. And then I had my second son, and he was born and he had a massive neonatal stroke at birth. And I remember waking up in the hospital kind of thinking, where's my baby? It was an hour. I had a C-section. Hour went by. I'm like, where's my baby? And they said, well, he's having trouble breathing. So I had him in a community hospital, and they couldn't really handle what was going on. So they had to send him to the Children's Hospital in Boston, which is about 30 miles away. And I remember waking up in the hospital to all the babies crying without my baby and thinking, what is going on? This is not the way it's supposed to be. And that feeling that you get where you just feel like the whole world is just sitting on you, and just you feel like you're having trouble taking that breath. Well, all of a sudden I heard this voice in my head that said, just breathe. So I took a really deep breath, and I took a bunch more deep breaths, and all of a sudden it's like this fog lifted, and I had this clarity, like I just need to get to my son. He's going to let me know what he needs. And I have to let go of all the shoulds and supposed tos and just be here right now and connect to right here, right now, and let things unfold as they're going to unfold. And that was a pretty powerful, pivotal moment for me, because I had, like I said, lived my life before this kind of anchored to that left logical brain. And it almost reawakened me to those intuitive gifts that we all have. And I remember arriving at the hospital, my husband's laboring over neonatal neurology books. And I said, babe, we don't need that right now. We just need to be present and connect to him and love him and listen and help direct the care. But let's just say this experience really started to show me where the gaps in healthcare were. And so I started to learn Reiki. I learned Reiki because a dear friend of mine said, he's going to need this. And, she'd been trying to train me in Reiki for years, but it's incredible what you wouldn't do for yourself, but you'd do for your kids. And so that was one of these moments. And then, I dove into personal training because he had right-sided weakness and I wanted to help him kind of move better. And I've always been interested in fitness. I dove into my first nutrition certification because I wanted to understand the foods that can help his brain and help the neuroplasticity and all that. Fast forward a couple more years, the same day I found out I was having my fourth boy, I found out my third son had leukemia. And again, at this point, I was already channeling the angels. I already knew about Reiki. I was a Reiki master at that point. I understood about connection, the importance of connection. And so it was almost like the universe was saying to me, you know what, you have all these tools, now let's practice them. And so I did Reiki on my son every single day. I really dove more deeply into mindfulness because if I started to think about the what ifs, I started to get completely overwhelmed. And I had no control over anything except the here and now. And so it really solidified everything that I learned and awakened me to my purpose, which was to help other women, other people that are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to do the right thing, be the right thing, show up for everybody at the expense of themselves. Because fast forward a couple more years, I started to have health problems. I thought I was having a stroke. I had migraines so bad. I started to drop my speech. I had all my 4 kids now that I was in charge of. And I remember talking to my husband on the phone. He said, Jen, you've got to call 911. I think you might be having a stroke, because I couldn't feel my right arm. My tongue went numb and I was not able to speak. And I said, I don't have time for that. I can't, who's going to watch the kids? I don't have time to call 911. So he called a friend, a neighbor, to come by and watch my kids. And I drove myself to the hospital. Not something I would recommend. Lo and behold, it was my wake-up call that I needed to start to take care of myself, that I needed to put myself on the map. So that's why I do what I do now. I really love helping other women awaken to who they are, reconnect to their soul, reconnect to the why, learn how to be more present in their life, and learn how to reclaim their time and energy, which we all feel like is a scarce commodity for us, right? But there are so many things that we don't even realize that we spend energy and time on that we don't need to. So that is one of the biggest things that I've just taken all of this. I've taken my knowledge of how to bridge those gaps in healthcare from Eastern and Western medical perspectives. And I really love to help people navigate. So as I mentioned to you before, Jill, I used to focus on the physical body and thriving in chaos. And now I teach people how to find calm in the chaos. And I teach people really how to connect and understand the emotional and the spiritual aspects of their lives that are really what throw us really off balance, that we can't put our fingers on. So that was a long-winded way of me saying that story. But
Yeah,
everybody's healthy and well, I will say. Everybody asked that. They're all healthy and well.
That was going to be my next question, because inquiring minds need to know.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful testimony that they are all alive and well.
Yeah.
To what you do.
Well, I really feel like being present and connecting on a soul level and allowing yourself to be guided by that, as well as when you learn how to calm your nervous system, because when we're stressed, which so many of us are, but we don't want to admit. When we are stressed, we cannot access our decision making. We cannot access our rational mind. We cannot make the best decisions for us because we're either using our head and ego to guide us, or we're being overly emotional. So when I learned really how to get calm and be present and give myself permission to pause, that's where I found my most powerful decision-making ability and the clarity on what is it that I need in this moment? What is it that my children need in this moment? I learned to become a fierce advocate for not just myself, but for my kids. And now I teach them how to be advocates and how to advocate for themselves by understanding who they are and what they need in the moment. So one of the most powerful things we could do, I feel like.
I was just going to ask, don't you feel like when you take that pause, and so few people actually exercise this, but it's like you stop time. It's 5 or 10 minutes. It is enough sometimes.
Yeah.
To
2
just,
minutes. Yeah.
or even 2 minutes, but just consciously step back mentally
Yeah.
and let your mind go and feel the answers, not necessarily listen for answers, but
And
just
absolutely. And I can actually hear probably people rolling their eyes right now, like, yeah, okay, how do you listen? But so I have a system, I call it my signature system. It's my ABC system. A is awareness. Before anything, you have to be aware of what's going on, what's throwing me off. Because a lot of times we're not even aware of that because we're so busy spinning that we don't even know what's causing that spin. So the A part is the awareness. And, you know, in nursing and healthcare, we say ABCs, you know, airway, breathing, circulation. Well, my ABCs are awareness, awareness of what the stressors are and what's happening in your world, awareness of what's going on in your body. And then the B is balance, breath and balance. Take those deep breaths to balance your nervous system, calm your nervous system. And to, you know, get out of that fight or flight and kind of, because we're not on fire. We don't have any saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore. And then the C is calm yourself, connect to what it is that you need, and then make the choices for you know, that are going to be the best for you in that moment. So for all those eye rollers, yes, it is when you calm yourself down, you can actually connect to and tune into, what do I need right now? What's going on? But you can't do that when you're in this triggered spin place.
Yeah, and just being able to take control of what you're thinking about, because when you're in these stressful situations, you've got thoughts coming at you from all angles, and it's really hard to like synthesize which thought am I going to base a decision on. And they hit you so fast. I mean, it's really hard to like
popcorn thoughts, right? They're popcorn thoughts. They come in, they zoom in. But what we do is we give those thoughts attention. And it's like, instead of noticing the thoughts that come and go, we attach to those thoughts and we start giving them a home. We make them nice and cozy in there. And then they become like this constant echo and no other thoughts can get in. So the key is to really notice the thoughts, but don't attach to them. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not true.
Exactly. and not attaching to them when you're getting when your normal life is set up in a way that you don't understand how to recognize your thoughts as you're having them, and then you don't know how to just accept a thought as a thought without attaching an emotion to it. And when you attach an emotion to it, it triggers a chemical response in your body. All emotions trigger a chemical response, and your body is going to want to do something with that. And if you've got all of these thoughts happening at you, the reason that we get into this catatonic state is because we're releasing all of these chemicals. And our body is like, I don't know what to do. That's how you get in that agitated state where you're just like, you feel like you're going to explode, literally. And
fight or flight, right? It's fight,
yeah,
flight, or freeze. Candace Perth has an amazing book on this called Molecules of Emotion. I teach a course at Endicott College called Holistic and Complementary Approach to Health and Healing. That's one of the things that all my students are amazed by, is how when we store and we repress emotions, or we try to avoid emotions by not dealing with them or understanding them, we can actually create, with all those chemicals that are impacted, the neurotransmitters that come, we can actually create illness in our body and disease in our body. So it's really important to move those emotions and not kind of shove them down and, I'll deal with them later. That doesn't work.
it goes somewhere.
Yep.
It's like, when you gain weight, it's usually because it's not necessarily because you're eating too much or you're even eating the wrong things. It's because the chemical reactions that you're having are causing a physical response in your body, which is to, let's store fat.
Yeah.
And being
Well,
under
cortisol.
stress does that. Yeah,
Really,
cortisol does that.
cortisol, and cortisol causes, sleep disruption. That's the thing that I kind of laugh at when I have clients that come in. I have a course called Stress SOS, and I was like, geez, maybe I should change the name of this course because people just aren't seeming to resonate with it. And then I had a couple of people give me feedback and said, nobody wants to admit that they're stressed. Nobody wants
But
to
they
say,
want to sleep better.
Yeah. But it's, if you're
And they
having,
want to lose weight.
right, or digestion, holding on to weight, or I know people that when they're stressed, they can't hold on to weight. They get really thin. I don't have that
Mhm.
problem. But
I actually do.
Oh.
I can't eat when I'm really stressed out.
Mm.
So it's kind of double-edged sword for me.
Yeah. Well, we all got something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting how that works. So how do you do your coaching? Is it group coaching, one-on-one,
I have a couple of
online,
different ways to
offline?
do it. All of the above. So I have, in the past, I've kind of COVID, like many people, COVID kind of forced me to change the way that I do things. I used to do a lot of coaching one-on-one in my office, but I found it was more like a health coaching kind of thing. And people were like, fix me. And so I started to really change the way I practice. Now I do one-on-one, as well as group coaching, as well as I have courses online. I have some ebooks. Some are free, some are paid, low paid. And I can do things one-on-one. I've done things virtually. So I can work with clients. I do a lot of energy work, and people are like, how do you do that virtually? I just need to connect my guides connect to your guides, and all the information flows from there. So I've done, energy healings that way. I create custom meditations for people to kind of help them move through some scenarios, all guided meditations. So yeah, I have a course called, or a group coaching program called Finding Calm in the Chaos. And it's all about, learning how to, a lot of us think that we need everything around us to be calm before we can be calm. And I like to teach people how to become that eye of the storm, so they can find that calm no matter what's going on around them. They always have that calm center that they can return to. So that's what this course is about. And it's an 8-week group coaching course, but otherwise I have 3 and 4 month one-on-one coaching programs and packages. And like I said, as well as some online courses. I do have the Stress SOS online. You go at your own pace using the modules.
Awesome. So what kind of people would you say your ideal clients are? How would they know that they're your people?
They're my people. They're me. So my ideal clients are usually very high achieving, high driving, type A, professional women, mompreneurs, people that are so busy running around showing up for everybody else that they don't have time for themselves. People that everybody comes to for help, and they love being the ones that people turn to for help, but women that have a really hard time letting others help them. those are my ideal clients. People that feel like they just don't have enough time for themselves. They don't seem to have any energy. They have trouble trusting themselves to make the right decisions. They have trouble delegating or asking people for help. They find themselves kind of, no matter what they do, they just never feel like they're doing enough or are being enough, but feeling spread thin and a little bit burned out. Those are my people. If that's you, you're my people. But people that are also, a lot of the people that come to me that I love working with are people that have done some coaching and some things before, and that are really ready. I always like to say, I'm not for the toe dippers. I'm not for people that kind of aren't really sure that they want to do anything or don't really want to take the time. I'm for people that if you are serious, that you want to take back your life, you want to find calm, clarity, and connection in your life, and you want to take back your power over your life so you can find more health and more happiness. And you're willing to do the work, and you're willing to dive a little deeper. You're willing to look hard in that mirror with support, then I'm your person.
And what would you say about their openness to trying some of these different modalities that might run contrary to
Yeah, I would say
some
that
paradigms?
for me personally, I am and was a skeptic. I am a firm believer. Even when I teach my students, I do Reiki on them. I do muscle testing on them. I have them experience different things because I'm a true believer in experiential learning and in subjective data, where people really have to experience something and feel the feeling or feel the difference for them to buy into it. And I really think one of my strengths as a coach is I meet you where you are. I don't force anything of you. I kind of figure out where are you and what are you open to, and then I share with you different things. And I use my intuition. I use my connection to the guides. I use oracle cards. I use energy work. I use guided meditations. I use a lot of different tools. And I've had people that come in and they're like, I'm not really sure that I buy into this. And I'm like, no problem. So I feel like eventually when you start seeing results, kind of like my husband is an orthopedic surgeon and he trusts me implicitly and will now send people to me because, he's seen it work with our kids. He's seen the results. So I really believe that once people start to experience things, and, start to feel the shift or start to all of a sudden with some guidance, start to really visualize things and tap into things that they didn't even know were inside them or that they had stored, that's where the transformation starts. You just got to be open. That's all I ask, is that you have an openness. If you come in closed and not ready to do anything, then you're wasting your own time as well as mine.
I love that you have a balance between hard science and very soft. I I like to think of the woo as very soft science because there is science behind a lot of that stuff
Quantum
that
physics.
people are like, la, 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 it's not,
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. Well, it's not about believing, it's about experiencing. And once
I'll give you a little example. When I love doing this with my students, when I cover, we do a whole unit on energy. And energy is a really challenging thing for people. I remember I was working with a shaman and I was at this meeting, and it was a physician's meeting. And I would leave while everybody was going to their meeting. I would leave and work with the shaman and come back. And one person was like, "Oh, did you find your spirit animal?" I was like, "Okay, clearly you don't." And I said, trying to explain to them what energy was. And they said, "Well, I don't understand it. Like, now tell me, somebody who is very grounded in science, so do me a favor, hum." And so they said, "Okay." I said, "Do you feel that vibration?" Yeah. I was like, "That's energy." And he's like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." So I do that with my students where I say, I'm going to do Reiki on each of you, whoever wants. I don't put it on anybody, but I said, if anybody wants me to do a little mini session, and literally it takes me about, like a minute to connect to somebody and kind of start seeing things. So I put myself over in the corner, and every one of my students has said, oh, I want it. I want it. So I come over and I start, and I put my hands on them, and I connect with them. And then immediately I start seeing pictures, and I'm guided to certain areas. And then I ask them permission to give them a message. Like, is it okay if I share with you what I'm picking up? And every one of them wants to. And the looks on their face when I see things like, oh, are you from I don't know anything about my students other than where they're from, what year they are, what their major is. I don't know anything about their children, their family backgrounds. And, I'll say, you're from a big family, or, do you have a role as like the caregiver in your family from a big family? And the look on my students' faces when they're like, how do you know that? So even my skeptics, you can't, like, how do you argue with that? How do I know these things? It's the guidance. So some of that woo-woo, they start to go, oh, well, maybe. Right. And then when I'm spot on, when I see something in them, that's where they feel the energy, they feel the heat, because they'll ask me, what am I supposed to feel? I said, yeah, you feel what you feel. So I said, sometimes people feel this, sometimes people feel this. So, and it's funny, I have another friend of mine that comes in and helps. She plays the sound bowls when I'm doing this, and she also does Reiki. And I explain to them how everybody's energy is different. So what they're getting from my friend and what they're getting from me and our approach, it's all different. And that's what's really cool about this stuff. But unfortunately, that's why people don't believe it, because it's hard to replicate this, and it's hard to research it and give that concrete data that people are looking for, because it's different, it's subtle, it's, and it has to do with how open you are and how open I am, and what, so there's so many different factors that play a role. So, yeah.
I think for the longest time, we've also been trained to look at the physical world as one thing, and the spiritual world as like something else. And really the spiritual world is just the energy world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's both of them are connected in that everything is energy. There's nothing that exists that is not energy.
Right.
It's what ties us all together. It's what holds molecules together.
Absolutely.
You turn on your computer, it's the electricity is just energy. It's
it's vibe. It's also that when you're
the
picking
light.
up from other people, right? And what you're picking up for other people, like, are these people, like, do I feel good when I'm around these people? Do I not feel good? That's energy. That's vibe. It's funny because, the word spiritual too, there's a lot of people that say, oh, that's like a taboo word, right? I was listening to this continuing education thing for personal training, and they said mind, body, brain, because they didn't want to use the word soul or spirit, because they said, that starts to get pretty tricky. And I think that's such a shame that we're afraid of that. I think it's because a lot of people equate spiritual and spirituality with religion, and they're two different things. Religion falls into spirituality, but spirituality is really about your connection to yourself, to the world around you, and to your purpose, and to kind of believing that there's more to life than just your little world. That's spirituality. Yeah. And your safety, your security, your trust, your ability to trust things. You're all the people, we're in this pandemic or epidemic of loneliness, according to the Surgeon General. It's because we are lacking spirituality. I believe the mental health crisis that's going on in our world, and I see this in so many of my students, people don't know who they are and where they fit, or, they don't understand what their purpose is and where they fit, how they belong. They don't trust themselves to make decisions, because we sort of stopped focusing on that spiritual well-being.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think a lot of it is we've been trained for a purpose, and a lot of that purpose is to put us in a box so that we're controllable. If everybody's the same, you can control them. If everybody's a unique individual, and we are all unique individuals, we all come here with something, a gift to offer and a lesson to learn. And And as we share those and as we connect with each other, one-on-one, in groups, get to know ourselves by ourselves,
Mhm.
the deeper the connections can be on the outside, that it all starts with understanding who you are and accepting who you are and just being at peace with who you are. It's okay. It's okay if the whole world doesn't like you, because that's not going to be true. People will be drawn to you. They'll be drawn to the real you, not this facade that society says you have to put on. And
Mhm.
people like you that are coaches out there that are helping people just really tap into this and provide you specifically, because you have both sides of this that you can bring to the people that come to you. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like people have to understand that we think that we want to fix all the outside world, fix other people. But the only thing we have control over is ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, our reactions, our choices in the present moment. And if most of us just focused on that instead of like, I'm a recovering perfectionist, a recovering people pleaser, as are most of my clients. When we realize that there are some people you will never please because they're just not happy with themselves, but that has nothing to do with you. That has to do with them. And when you have people that are expecting perfection from you, that is an unrealistic expectation. So, I mean, I say that to my kids all the time. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm disappointing you because you're expecting me to be perfect. And I will never meet that expectation, right? I won't. So, giving our let me try that again. Giving ourselves permission to be imperfectly perfect and to, with our best intentions, please others, but not at the expense of pleasing ourselves. That's a good place to start.
I just had this flash as you were talking about kids and grades.
Ugh.
I think grading is like the most horrible thing that we do to people. Not everybody is going to be great at everything, but we encourage people to be straight A students as though you can be the master of everything.
So I had this conversation with my son in the car. So I have my youngest is 15, and he has a good friend of his that was in he's in a chemistry class, and they're in honors chemistry. And he said, my friend, he's dropping out of honors chemistry because he's not doing well. He's not getting a good grade. And my son said to me, Mom, I'm so glad that you and Dad don't focus on the grades. I said, no, I don't care about the grades. What do I care about? And he said, you care about effort. I said, exactly. If you're giving your best, then I'm okay with that. And there was some study that came out that said, actually, the best, most innovative thinkers were C students.
Yep. I read that study too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people that are the most successful are not the valedictorians.
No, they're people. And here's what I'm seeing in the students that I teach. Kids don't know how to problem solve. We have spent so long, and that's a whole nother podcast, Jill, but my brother's a teacher and we've talked about this. We are teaching to the test and regurgitating information that we are not raising or educating thinkers. We are, tell me what to do, tell me what to know. And what we really want are people that can problem solve, innovators. And those are people that think outside of the box and aren't going to maybe necessarily kind of regurgitate. I mean, I have a son right now that's applying to colleges. He's a senior. The one that had cancer is 18 and applying to colleges. And, it's tough because he's taking all AP classes, but he had a couple he got a C in. I'm like, buddy, you got a lot on your plate. And
they expect these kids to be doing high level work.
Yep.
In a bunch of different subjects.
Yep.
Our brains aren't wired that way. They're really wired to focus on one thing at a time and at least become proficient at it before you
Yeah.
add something that's o- on a different track. I mean, you
Oh,
have math and language.
right. But on top of that, applying to colleges nowadays, people want, I mean, it's quite competitive. And what colleges are expecting kids to do to stand out, it's a lot. Like literally some of the top colleges, and I'm a firm believer that you get in where you're meant to be and that there's a place for everybody. I believe that wholeheartedly. My 21-year-old, the one that had a stroke, he has massive learning disabilities. He tried college. He's like, this isn't for me. Now he's looking for the right, because he realizes now at 21, okay, I need a little bit of structure. I need a little bit of, he wants to do internships and stuff. His thing is film and photography, but there's a place for everybody. And I think it's such a travesty when we are looking at kids and telling them they're not enough, right? You need to be a leader in this. You need to be in this club, that club, this sport, that sport, or you need to have, do this volunteer work and start this organization and maybe even, start this. It's like what we're expecting of them is just unrealistic and it's not fair. It's robbing them of the ability for them to be kids.
Enjoy life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it ends up trapping them in careers that once they get through the education process, they hate because it's not who they are. They've just been told you have to do all these things and move along this path, which
Yeah.
may or may not actually be the path that they should be on to begin with.
So I have a great story regarding that. So my oldest son is 24 and he thought that he wanted to be a Marine and he got an ROTC scholarship. He was also playing college lacrosse and it was a lot for him. So he came back to us and said, is it okay if I don't do ROTC, give up my scholarship? I still want to go into the Marines, but I'm going to go through it a different way. We said, no problem. You got to do what's right for you. And if this is too stressful, we understand it. So COVID came, he got long COVID. He had trouble breathing. He had to defer his officer candidate school. He went to the first one, his senior OCS, he had to defer. He wasn't able to play lacrosse his junior and senior year because of his health conditions. And then come senior year, he still, and I remember talking to him and saying, are you sure this is the path you want? Yep. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, Mom. It's like, okay. And then senior year, March of senior year, he had some more health complications. And I remember him calling me from school and he said, Mom, I feel like the universe is trying to tell me something. Of course, inside I'm like, you think? But, and I said, well, what do you think? What do you think they're telling you? He said, this is not the right path for me. And I was like, okay, that's great. And then he graduated and here he has this degree and he got a degree in international relations, again, thinking he was going to go the military route. But he really loved his entrepreneurial business classes and that really sparked an interest in him. He loves storytelling and connecting to people. And so he thought, I think I kind of want to do something in marketing, but he graduated, he didn't have any internships. Like all of his friends had already had internships. A bunch of his friends had jobs lined up. And he literally took a year after he graduated doing, working in a brewery, coaching lacrosse, doing a bunch of different things. He had 3 jobs at a time, but he was taking that time to network and figure out the right fit. And he landed a job almost a year ago now. And he loves it. He's in marketing. He's working for a small marketing firm, but he's a brand manager and he's able to do a little bit of this. He calls me every week to tell me about some cool thing he did. And he just got an award for being and he's like, I'm telling people stories. I'm able to, all this stuff that I thought, good for you. But it took him a while and it took him this kind of spiritual crisis to open himself up to what is it that I'm meant to do? And he said so many of his friends are miserable in their jobs because they followed the shoulds instead of following their soul. So yes. I'm so proud of him for that. But yeah, so yes, I've experienced that.
I'm so proud of him too.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's happy. Yeah.
And I encourage that for everybody. That's just like so important.
Yeah.
So you offer the power of 3 to people
Yes.
that want to connect with you, and
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, so the power of 3 is my guide of my 3 questions to ask yourself. And it's kind of 3 prompts for reflection to shift from that negative, worst case scenario thinking to positive. And it was born from my 18-year-old he thinks he wants to go into medicine. And he did a medical mission going to the Dominican Republic this summer. And this is my son who doesn't like getting outside of the comfort zone. And this was really pushing him outside his comfort zone. And he wanted to do this because he wanted this personal growth. But he has a lot of anxiety. He has sort of this, I call it the gremlins in his head that constantly tell him all the things that could go wrong, the catastrophic thinking. So he was the first 5 days on this trip, he was wanting to come home, overwhelmed, all the negative voices in his head. And so I spent several hours on the phone with him. But before he left, we processed this. And I said, every day, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. And so once he started to do that, and then when he'd start calling me spinning, I'd have him read me those, did you do the prompts? Okay, read them to me. What are your 3 things? And it started to just shift him out of that catastrophic thinking into this being a little bit more open to the possibilities and positivity. So I created this guide after that, thinking, okay, let me help some more people do that. And it's pretty simple. I give you some prompts. I would also love to offer your listeners a free call if they think that they want to learn more about what I do, or they think that they want to see if I can help them on their journey. I always offer a free connection call.
And where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Jen Ren Tolo, WRENTOLO. Same for Facebook at Jen Ren Tolo. My website is jenniferwrentolo.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure we put those links in the show notes below. So Jen, what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with today?
One of the biggest things, especially for us high achieving women, I want to leave you with the thought that you are in control of you. You're in control of your energy. You're in control of your time. And when you learn to really embrace that, and that your choices are your greatest superpower, you can start to take back your power over your life. You get to decide who gets your time. You get to decide where your energy goes. And you get to decide what you need in that moment. Don't let yourself be led by all the shoulds and supposed tos, and really start to tune into your wants and your desires.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.